Are you done practicing your TikTok?
I wasn't TikToking.
We're gonna make some TikToks, aren't we?
We're gonna try.
Welcome to episode 12 of After Bedtime with Stevan.
And Kelsey.
Okay, so from out of the gate here, I think to make this relevant and just address the elephant in the room,
I feel like we have to.
we just need to real quick just do a quick update on the status of the world.
I don't feel like we have to because that they see it everywhere else. This doesn't have to be anything about that.
You don't think the coronavirus needs to be mentioned at all?
I personally don't think so.
You don't want to share?
Because if people are going to listen to a podcast, they're going to listen to something that relieves them from that stress. If they want to go and watch the news, they can watch the news.
Okay, well, I'll just share like an update that's a positive update. I think it's kind of cool. I just told you about it, so it's not news to you. So I saw on Instagram that Rogue Fitness posted that for like the next 24 hours, they're not taking any new orders because they have to catch up on all the orders they've gotten.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because it means that there's that many gym rats out there that are upset that they can't get to the gym.
Or that just means that there's that many people out there that are so bored that they're like, well, might as well.
Well, it's a positive either way you look at it then.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, I would find that extremely shocking that there's that many gym rats in the world.
I say that many, but like obviously it's not a ton, but it's
enough to overwhelm a company.
Yeah, which is cool.
I agree.
And it's good for that company, so that's a positive. But the coronavirus is a real thing. It's impacting. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like negatively impacting our lives, but we are having to modify.
I mean, we have to
being mindful, washing our hands, not going out unnecessarily.
Well, I mean, everyone should always be washing their hands.
Yeah, we're trying to practice good community health, which we should do all the time, but we're probably not very good at doing it all the time.
I feel like it has inconvenienced us. I hate saying inconvenience because I know that there's all the people that are in like retail right now and like healthcare, it's really inconveniencing them because their whole world has changed, and I just have to be locked in my house.
Yeah, it's relative. It's always relative.
But I mean, it's rough not being able to take the boys out or take them to go see grandparents.
Yeah, from our little
stuff like that.
From our little corner of the world, yeah, it's definitely different. I even think that we're probably at work gonna start rotating office days, probably more than likely at
work. What do you mean?
So probably like a group of us will be in the office. We have some of our suppliers. That's what their R&D groups are doing. Is like part of the team's in the office on Monday, part of the team works from home, and then the next day part of the team's.
I think they should be doing that rotation because then also, God forbid, if somebody did get infected in your group, it's not taking out your whole entire.
Yeah, trying to limit that, and just less people in the same amount of space is better, right? That's less likelihood of. So, I think
because also you're supposed to stay 6 feet apart, and your team. There's no way that you guys can stay 6 feet apart.
And I think, my personal opinion, I think Missouri is going to follow suit with Illinois. They're going to follow suit with all these states, and they're going to probably issue a shelter.
I kind of.
But I don't want to speculate, but I think that's where a lot of this is going.
I hope so because I'd much rather it just get done and over with. I understand where Missouri's governor is coming from when he doesn't want to have to do that, but I think because I get it, he doesn't want to close down everything because it's gonna hurt a lot of people. It's gonna hurt a lot of small businesses. They may not be able to recover from it. I understand that, but this is life and death.
Yeah, and it's
situations.
To along that same vein, it's like it's gonna hurt either way.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's now just a matter of, okay, let's try to mitigate the damage as much as possible.
And I feel like if we just close down.
Yeah, in terms of damage, in terms of like human health, like, death and sickness and suffering.
I'm just saying, based on its track record everywhere else, and I said I didn't want to talk about this,
I know.
but everywhere else in the world, the only thing that has been effective is shutting everything down.
Yeah.
Either that, or you test everybody. Because isn't it in South Korea, they tested everybody.
Yeah, my understanding is like
And
that's how China
affected.
and South Korea have flattened their curve, so to speak, or limited spread out the number of infections or reduced the number of cases. In China, like I heard, I work with a Chinese citizen at work, and she was telling me like they basically it was government mandated that you were to stay at home, and they enforced it. And then second was just like basically randomized testing. What they did was they had people stationed outside of public buildings, offices, businesses, and they were just sampling everyone's temperature. And if you had any elevation of temperature whatsoever, they immediately removed you, took you off to have a CT scan, to have an actual test administered, and isolated you until the results of those testing came back. And if you were positive, then you were isolated. You were isolated from your family. Like they had like wards set up. Like, and that was one of like they've been criticized for some of the draconian extremes of it. Like they were separating families, separating kids and parents. Like they were taking very extreme measures. But seems to be
I get that, and I understand that, because yes, I would never ever in this world be okay with being separated from California.
No, and I don't think Americans would go for that. But
no,
I think that, to your point, I think the more...
I'm just saying, if the United States is struggling catching up on getting tests for everybody in the country,
the next best thing
is shut it down then, until you can get ahead of the situation.
But by like shut it down, you mean more of we're going to limit all non-essential...
Yes, I'm not saying like cut people's
We're not
food
shutting
supply
down
off.
the country.
I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying mandate it to where it's shelter in place situation. If you come out of your house, it has to be for a valid reason.
California, New York, Illinois, similar to what those states are doing.
Yeah,
I think
also
more
I feel like we need to pay more attention to the grocery store situation. Like we shouldn't just be allowing it to be a madhouse. It should be only a certain amount of people go in, and when one person comes out, another person can go in. Yeah. Because that literally is just a human cesspool of germs right now.
See, I got you started. I'm gonna have to rein you in.
Well, yeah, because I'm very riled up about a lot of this. I'm very upset with how a lot of people are handling it.
Okay, so on that, to transition off of the coronavirus, but on a positive note, so I think though with anything, your attitude determines a lot of it, right? So even, for example, with this coronavirus and the changes in life and the changes in our world that are happening, you can choose that is still in your control, right? The energy that you bring to the situation, the attitude that you bring to the situation is still in your control. So you can bring an attitude of doom and gloom and pessimism and negativity, or you can bring the attitude of optimism, energy, persistence.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
because I mean, if you breathe and think doom and gloom, that's your whole world's going to be doom and gloom.
Yeah. So to make it relevant to more of what our podcast is about, is there's this Vince Lombardi quote that says, and I love Vince Lombardi so much, but here's a quote that he said, where he said, you are either fired with enthusiasm or you will be fired with enthusiasm. Basically meaning that you can either choose to bring energy and positivity and enthusiasm to your work, or somebody is going to very enthusiastically remove you from your work. But I think that applies to like a lot when it comes to your marriage and your family and your relationships. Like what I had written down as the topic was your energy precedes you wherever you go. Your energy it precedes you, and it leads for you. So like as that relates to like when you get home from work, for example, whatever energy you bring through that door with you when you get home from work, everyone knows it, everyone's going to feel it, no matter how much you try to hide it or obfuscate it, it's there, and people can sense it, and that can dramatically alter the next interactions you have and the rest of the evening you have at home. And then like the energy that you bring to your kids and how you interact with your kids, that can completely alter the interaction, the response, the attitude of your children, energy of your children. And like I've just become such a believer in that. And I know we don't all get that energy perfect every time, and it sounds for someone who's like very cynical and evidence-based and scientific, it sounds kind of like woo-woo, but it's something I really believe in. Woo, like mystical energy, vibes, but I really 100% believe that like it is palpable. Like when somebody is enthusiastic and upbeat and positive, you can feel it, you can sense it.
I think that's true for us and our family, because like we've said before, is I think we're a full family of empaths. Maybe not so much Kyler, but for sure Cal. But
you don't feel that way I would agree that yes, probably.
I'm saying that it's more relevant in our life because that is a big part of our life.
But you don't feel that way like at work, like you can just kind of sense. Like
that's what I'm saying. I can, because that is who I am as a person.
So you're saying there's probably a degree to which
I don't feel like that's everybody.
Not everybody not everybody can. And that may be true. Maybe there's a spectrum, but I would posit that everyone to some degree
could be learned.
I think everyone to some degree can tune to it. Like when I played football, the energy with which one coach brings can change a whole demeanor of a team, or the energy of a few players. If you're in the fourth quarter and you are down by 14 with 3 minutes to go, if you have like 2 or 3 players who are just calm and focused and like in the moment and not losing their shit, that can hold the team together and rally them for a win. Versus like if everyone is like defeated and kind of panicked and like basically already wrote the end of the story.
I agree with you. I'm just, I'm somebody, I don't like the words always and never. I don't feel like everybody in the world is that way. Do I feel like a good majority probably is? Yes.
Yes, okay. That being said, I think that's not something we give enough credit to. Like, people are like, well, I don't understand, or I don't get why this always happens, or I don't understand why we fight, or I don't get why my kids are acting this way, or...
Well, also, the way your children act, how do I want to put this? Like, if you are in a bad mood, everything your kid does is going to annoy you 10 times more.
Yeah, and I think in my
So it's not necessarily your kid is behaving worse because you're in a bad mood, necessarily. I mean, like, I do agree that there's some aspects of that, but I do think that people's patience is lower whenever they're in a bad mood.
Yeah, if your energy is negative,
yeah,
you'll be more likely to be impatient, less tolerant.
Because there's a lot I can.
And maybe energy is
a bad mood. It's totally different.
And maybe energy, when I use that term, energy, it's kind of like that Vince Lombardi quote. It's less about energy as so much as it is about a mindset. But the energy is the proxy for your mindset, right? Like if your mindset is very enthusiastic and positive, that is gonna flow through you. Like it's gonna one thing that I've tried to do with our sons is like I want the love that I have for them to be palpable. Like I want to try to make it to where they can like feel it. And it's such a weird it sounds like magic, but it's like you're trying to like conjure this sense of love in you that's so big and so great that somebody can literally sense it through your action, through your words. Like they can just feel like this person loves me and cares for me. And I think that's a real thing.
No, I agree.
And I think leaders do that. Like really great leaders make their people feel like, man, this guy, he cares for me. He is in tune with me. He knows me, and I don't know I don't think like it's a hard thing to practice all the time, but it's something that I'm trying to be more mindful. Like when I walk into a room or I come into a situation, like what is my energy? What's where am I? Like if and I can always tell, like if my energy is real low and I have this kind of like no one better mess with me, no one better bother me kind of energy, like I know any interaction I have.
Which is Steven's default.
No, it's not my default setting, but I know that sometimes I feel that way. And so then I'm mindful of that because I'm like, okay, if I go into this interaction and I bring that kind of energy, people are going to feel it and they're going to be affronted by it and they're going to be defensive and on the ready for a confrontation because of it. Instead, I've got to shift that energy to be more open and welcoming and inviting, and that will make things that much easier and that much better. And I think as it relates to like sometimes like I was thinking about like how that functions in our relationship, and like there are times when you will be like, are you okay? Like you've somehow picked up on an energy, and like now you're like on pins and needles, or you're trying to like not, like you're worried that whatever you do or something you say is gonna set me off, and I'm not trying to.
Well, I think in some situations you
like I'm not.
Well, I'm your wife. I'm like your safety zone. So you, like they say, I'm not trying to call you a toddler of saying this, but they say this, like there's a lot of memes and like GIFs or whatever of pictures of the toddler freaking out, always a bigger deal to the mom. Well, the mom is the safety zone. They're the comfort spot, so they feel more comfortable to have their true feelings around their mom. Well, I feel that with you sometimes, that you tend to either, because you've been working all day to keep your, mood
we can all
and
be a little bit
enthusiasm.
more raw.
Yes,
Like
and so I feel like there's times where you tend to not, I guess, fight so hard to shift your mood.
Well,
when
I think it's not that I fight so like.
But I do it to you too.
My perception of it all is, I'm just trying to deal with what I'm feeling, and I'm not trying to put anyone on pins and needles. I'm not trying to disturb anybody. I'm just trying to deal with it. But I recognize that, like, wow, people feel it. Yeah. People can feel like the vibe that's. People can feel the vibes that are coming off me.
Like, it's not necessarily that I feel like on pins and needles around you when you get like that. It's just I know that there's a greater risk of us fighting,
and we can all,
when one of us is in that sort of state.
Probably the most relatable experience that everyone can have to that is like when your mom is pissed. Yeah. But she doesn't say
anything.
But you know with every
and the
fiber,
whole wrath
you know, with
is
every
gonna
fiber
come
in
at
your
you.
being that woman is pissed about
Yeah.
something, right? She doesn't have to say anything. You just feel it.
It's just that everyone it's not just moms, but like everyone has that mode. And it's just where everyone who's close to you knows it's not the time.
But it's so cool because the flip side of that is then when you recognize that, you recognize, wow, this is like a superpower that can be put to good. Like I can take this thing that puts everybody on edge and use it to make everybody feel awesome and happy and loved. Like I can use that same negative, the same thing that people can, so many of us can relate to from a negative experience, and I can use it to drive positive experiences. You know, I don't know. That's something that I want to be more mindful of, but I want to try to. I feel pretty good about like how I am with the boys about that. I mean, sometimes I fail at it, but I would like to be more mindful with other people. But sometimes it's hard for me to expend that.
Well, I mean, you're a natural born introvert.
So sometimes
there's
like
a lot more energy for you to have to do that.
So sometimes it's like, I don't want to expend this emotional capital for you, but for my kids, like I'll expend everything, you know. For my wife, I'll expend everything. But for like other people, I'm always like, eh. But
that's also why people think you're gruff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I should. Well, at work, someone said I was very mild mannered. So
I still think that's hysterical because that is not somebody that truly knows you. Not even in the slightest.
I know because like I know how intense of a personality I am. And there's probably actually people at work. There's probably a lot of people in my adult life that don't get to experience me that way. But like as like my family knows that, you know that. Close friends like Dane would know that. Like he knows that I'm very intense, disciplined, like focused, driven individual. But I know how sometimes that can come off.
It sometimes rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah, or it's like some people just don't want that intensity in their life. They're just like, wow, whoa, man, just like chill out, right? Yeah. And so like over
which
time,
is also funny because when we first started dating, and everyone was like telling me that either there's one end telling me that he was mean, and then there was another end of saying that he's just so quiet. He's just so quiet, or gruff type personality. And I'm like, I have not seen.
I think because, and you could probably attest to this better than anybody, but I think some people, they say, oh, Steven's so quiet, he's so introverted.
Or they think you don't like them.
Or that, but like those like, oh, he just wants to sit over there in the corner and like read his books or do his thing. And the actual, that is actually like, it's like an adaptation because like I know that like in conversations I can come off really intense and people like I'm not a superficial small talker, like I'm not super great at that.
Which is also funny because that's a good majority of my family. That's them.
But I have had to stretch that ability. Like personal training was great. One-on-one personal training was great for that because I had to learn how to stretch a 60-minute conversation with somebody about things that maybe aren't as deep as I want them to be or as intense as I want them because there isn't that relationship yet or hasn't established that relationship. I
still have some family members that maybe slightly question if Steven actually likes them or not. And he does. It's just whenever they're trying to do that chit-chatty conversation, and he's just going, yep.
Well, I mean, part of it is I'm not as interested in it, but then also part of it.
It's not that you don't like them, it's just you don't
but part of it
have a whole lot to say about that conversation.
Yeah, or I've already made up my mind on that thing, and I don't want to, like,
discuss it any further.
Well, I will come off really intense. I'll be like, well, this is what I think, and this is how I think, and this is why I think, and here's everything I've read on it, and this is blah, 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 blah. And then people are like, whoa. I just wanted to talk about the headline I saw on Facebook. you know, and that, and I feel I have the self-awareness that I see that, and I can see it in people's reaction. I can see how I have the self-awareness of how I come off and how people perceive me, and I think that's why I prefer not.
You're just more of a blunt personality.
Yeah, I just.
There's nothing wrong.
Not
with
blunt.
that.
I don't. But like I don't feel like I'm rude. I just feel like I'm
blunt and rude are two different things.
Like this is
just because you're just assertive in your answers and you say it, that doesn't mean that you're being rude.
No, it's just this is I don't know.
I don't think
I'm working on that.
I don't view blunt as
but
rude.
I think that's why I have coworkers who say like, "Oh, Steve's pretty mild mannered."
Who said that?
Huh?
Who said that?
It was a coworker of mine who said that somebody commented to them that, you know, Steve, he doesn't really get that worked up about anything, and he seems really mild mannered.
I think that is so funny.
Which I don't value getting worked up about things, and I think I've gotten over getting worked up about things a lot. What I'm more of referring to now.
Have moments.
Yeah, I saw moments, but I think people sometimes misinterpret my worked upness for that's just I'm just intense. You know, like that's how I am. I am just an intense person. That's just, I believe in discipline equals freedom. I believe in get your ass up out of bed and do the work. Right? It's not that I'm worked up or angry that you won't get up and I think you're lazy. I just believe in that. And that's what I think. And that's what I feel. And people can perceive that as being like, whoa, buddy. Like, calm down.
I don't think that's bad.
Okay. So, on the topic of how I communicate, versus how maybe other people communicate.
Well, I thought you were getting ready to be like, and now we're going to talk about Kelsey's.
No, I didn't mean that to derive into like
personality.
A whole 5-minute conversation of Stevan, but one of our most, or what I would say our most popular episode of the podcast has been so far, what has gotten the most listens and views, was our episode on you're an extrovert, I'm an introvert. We kind of did like a majority of one episode where we talked about how I'm the introverted one, you're the extroverted one, how that plays out in our relationships and how we kind of have learned to manage that. So on that same vein and trying to give people what they seem to be interested in is we have very different love languages. So if just to provide context, if you're not familiar, there's a book basically that, and there's a test that you can do that basically helps.
I feel like we've talked about love languages.
We have. I think we may have talked about it on the extrovert introvert one, but I don't think we talked about it as in depth.
Okay.
So I thought it would be a good one to highlight another thing to contrast. So what it tells you is basically it gives you insight into how you give and receive love, and I think love people can sometimes misinterpret. It's not necessarily like romantic love. It's like care and affection. How you provide that to others and how you receive that. Not just in a marriage, but it can also apply to like working relationships, friendships, things like that. You know, how do you demonstrate
every relationship you have.
Yeah, how you demonstrate your care for those people. And there's I'm pretty sure there's 4. There's quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch or physical affection or something like that, which is obviously probably more of in the romantic sense. You're probably not like giving your boss a lot of hugs or giving your coworkers a lot of hugs.
No.
That would be inappropriate. Well, I don't know. I don't know where people work, so go figure. Maybe that's okay where you work. Anyways, but the test or the assessment helps you identify kind of your primary one, and then how much of a percentage you fall into, your secondary, your tertiary
Oh, goodness.
languages. So my primary love language is acts of service, and then my second one is physical touch or physical affection. And I'm pretty confident that when you did it, yours was.
You keep saying this, but I don't remember.
You don't remember doing it?
No, I remember doing it, but I don't remember what they were.
I'm almost 100% certain that it's quality time and words of affirmation, which is just like basically
almost the
exact opposite of it, basically. So I guess the first thing I would start with is the struggle, I think, for me has been that I'm a doer, or I feel like I'm a doer. I want to do stuff. I want to accomplish things. I want to get things done. I want to work on projects. I want to achieve goals. That requires me to devote time to all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm also, though, married to somebody who time's well spent. I think there's definitely a balance between quantity and quality there, but time spent is how you're going to perceive, how you're going to perceive my care and affection and love for you. And so that
but I feel like I've adapted slightly to where it's not like in the beginning it was like we literally had to be doing something together, or we had to be cuddling and watching a movie. Like that was what it had to be. But now I feel like as long as you're even just in the same room.
Yeah, and to be fair to both of us, because we started dating so young, when I was 15, like I had like football, school, and you. I was like it. Those were my only things, right? So like, being a 15-year-old kid, there's not a lot of draining your time, so there's plenty of time for me to make sure that
I know, but that's almost where I probably was like worse when we moved out and you started working and college and
then,
all of that stuff. It almost kind of pulled out the spoiled little brat in me a little bit.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was a spoiled brat though. I think
I would get frustrated.
Well, you got frustrated, but I think that's what led. I think that friction is what led to that growth of understanding. It's like, oh, this was working really well. Like you really felt you really felt how much I loved you when there wasn't a ton of different things I was focusing my time on, and you were getting a good portion of.
Yeah.
And so then
But also, like when we first moved out, I was working and going to school too, so there's a lot of things pulling me away. So I don't really feel like that was much of an issue when we lived in the apartment, because we both had very, very busy schedules. So whenever we did have the spare time, we wanted to just be together because that's the only time we had together. I think we started to have the issues more of when we moved here in the beginning of our marriage even, because my schedule slowed down a lot. I just had a job. That was it. And then yours like almost sped up.
Yeah, it's always
because
been,
you had the gym, like it just kept going.
That's to me that's
time.
always been a struggle in my adult life. In a relationship with you has been that struggle of balancing all these things I want to get done, because like that's like something like I've always had a hard time empathizing with others, is like people will be like, well, I don't know what I'll do with all this time on my hands. And me, I don't have that problem. Like I could fill every minute of every hour in the day with things that I want to do and accomplish. Like I'm just a very self-directed individual that has lots of interests. So I have to always do that constant pull of like, when I say yes to this, I have to say no to that, right? Because there's very few moments where I'm like, if I'm sitting doing nothing, it's because I made the deliberate choice to sit and do nothing. Because there's 100 things I could pick to like spend time on.
Yeah, but I feel like having kids has also helped you slow down even more.
Yeah, and that to me, that's what the only way I could fix this, the only way I could I had to come to I guess what I did was, like, messed up or not, like, having a successful marriage became a goal. It became something, like, I turned it, like, that's always innately something that I want to be successful at, but I turned it into something that is like one of those hard, written down, like, prioritized goals.
Instead of just it's always going to be there.
No, yeah, exactly. I moved it front and center
on the list.
Correct. And because of that, then it was like, okay, well, I have to put time here. You know, then it becomes, and same thing with being a good dad or being a very trying to be a present father.
Think the best way to describe Cal is he almost, and Kyler too, but I mean Cal for the most part is almost a very perfect blend of me and you together, because I think he got physical touch from you because he is very lovey-dovey when he's in that mindset.
But quality time is
huge.
Yeah. And like I know, like list. I'm not sure what the science is to the love language, or how or when it does or does not apply.
I feel like it's.
But if I was to try to look at our kids through that lens, you know, I see that in Cal, and so like, and I think
I don't see quality time quite as much in Kyler.
No, but that what I mean is like
it doesn't affect Kyler as much.
Trying to map what their love language is through that lens of like how do they receive and give love and things like that. You know, that's what I would ascribe to Cal. But I think working through that with you put me in a really solid place for the kids.
Well, it opened your eyes to it.
Yeah, it did. Because
of how drastically different me and you both are in that category. It kind of opened our eyes to be aware of their personality traits and how they receive their love.
Yeah, and it helped me focus on, you know, like, it helped me make that mindset shift of, you know, there isn't more important work than being with your wife, or there isn't more important work than raising your kids. Being with your wife, working on your relationship with your wife, raising your kids, that is the most important work, right? And like,
yeah. Or at least it should be.
It should be, in my opinion. And for a personality type like me, that's the mindset shift that had to change for me to not feel conflicted, to not feel pulled in this direction or that direction, but to really be like, this is part of my set of goals, and devoting time here is crucial. And it doesn't mean that I'm missing out on something else.
I also just feel like you shifted because you realized, especially with our kids, that time is fleeting. Like before too long, we're not going to be their everything in the world.
No, yeah, 100%.
And so you wanted to focus more on them and family time now, because also that builds a huge, strong foundation for when they are older. If we already have that strong, huge family bond, it's going to bring them. That's what's going to bring them back.
Oh yeah,
is because we spent all that time together when they were younger. But I feel like that's what kind of made you shift, is because you also realized that you blinked and Cal's 3, almost 4 now, and you're losing that time. So would you much rather be doing diving into all of your side hustles and all your projects that you have, which are infinite and they were always going to be there? Or do you want to focus on our kids and our little family unit now?
Yeah, and that's
where whenever they're not their main attention focus, whenever that starts slipping away, then you can fill your time.
Yeah, and that's personally like going into being a dad. That's been my mindset from the beginning of like, I will happily punt the next 20 years of my life to focus on this and make this a priority, meaning taking care of my kids and being there for my family and being that
physically and emotionally.
Yeah, being that present father that I want to be. And then after, like you said, like when that next phase of life comes, that next season of life where that, our kids are moving on to their own lives and their own things and building their own worlds, I can decide what is next for me.
Well, I don't even really view it as like the next 20. Like, once they become preteens and teens and up, there's gonna be more time.
True, but I just mean like that until they get into that next season of their life where like they're out there engaging the world, making their own relationships, making their own money.
Yeah.
Like you're always like as a parent, you always have a role to play in your kid's life, but as they reach higher and higher levels of adulthood, you play a smaller role. Just like our parents, they're a huge part of who we are. They're a huge part of why we are where we are, but they play a smaller and smaller role in our just day-to-day lives, you know? But getting back to like the love languages thing is like, that's just, to me, that's been my biggest struggle. Like, because when you and your partner's love languages are so divergently different, you have to go out of your way to show, not out of your way, but you have to make an effort and a practice out of showing them love in the way they receive love. And that's the important part of like love languages to me, is not how I receive love. It's about understanding how your partner receives love, how your kids receive love, how your friend receives love, so that you can demonstrate love to them in a way they can actually hear it. Because you may be expending all the effort in the world trying to show people love the way you show love, but that's not how they hear it. And so you may be giving 110% effort, but it's just your message is lost in the delivery. You know, and that can be very frustrating for the person on the receiving end, and it can be very frustrating on the person on the giving end. And for me, that because I'm an acts of service, and because I'm a doer, that lines up really well and meshes really well for me. But there can be a lot of resentment if I feel like, well, this person isn't reciprocating love towards me, and I'm spending all this energy doing all these acts of service trying to show all my love to these people, and they don't seem to be getting it, and they don't seem to be reciprocating. They probably are reciprocating, though. I just don't hear it the way they're reciprocating it.
Yeah, and that's why I had to change my tune on a lot of things. Like, the biggest fight we had over and over and over was the dishes in the sink.
Yeah, which that was the one I think we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like right on the same line. It's like that's obviously an acts of service thing that as somebody who's,
and I've had to train myself to do these things, because I know that when you come home, not being like a whole housewifey situation, but just the fact that if you come home, you've been at work all day, you've had to make yourself be an extrovert all day, you can walk in the door, you can have a clean house, or dinner made, or no dishes in the sink, or whatever the situation is, just so that you can walk in the door and feel a little bit of.
But I think that's where the meeting in the middle comes from, is I have to drop that, because then the story I have behind acts of service for me is not your story. The reason why,
I get that,
you know what I mean?
But then also I don't want you to completely drop it, because I am doing these extra stuff that I personally don't feel like is a big, huge deal to me, but I do them because I know.
So I can recognize, and I can recognize and appreciate that effort and receive that.
I'm like, whoa, bro, I've trained myself to make sure I do these things, and now you're like, oh, it doesn't matter.
That's part of that. To me, that's that give and take, is like,
Yes, there is some days when you come home and I haven't really done
But that's
acts
that,
of service,
and that's
where you need to be
that's
okay with that.
It's not that, when I do something, when I try to do something for somebody, it's not a it's when I do something for somebody, I'm looking at this is a way of me serving you and showing you love, to try to demonstrate how much I care for you. That's not when. But when I don't do acts of service for you, it can also be a way of me communicating the opposite of that, right? And so it's very easy for me to carry that same narrative to other people and project that onto other people. Oh, if someone doesn't do something for me or doesn't think of doing something for me, that's obviously a lack of concern and care for me. And that's not the truth, right?
Yeah.
That's not their truth. And you become much more empathetic with people, and you try to become much more understanding of where they're coming from, not necessarily the way your eyes see the world and the way you perceive the world.
Yeah, I would say that two things of our biggest advice of people who are in serious relationships, who are going down the track to become married, or just devoting themselves to each other for the rest of their lives. I would say you need to trial of living together for a little bit. Go canoeing together. No joke. Go canoeing together. And then look up what your guys' love languages are.
That's good advice. They may not want it, though.
Well, I wasn't... That was rude.
I'm kidding. I'm just saying. I was just making a joke because you know how people are. They're like, that may work for you.
They can listen to it, but they don't have to actually take it. But I would just say that is the way I view it. I feel like that is what has helped our relationship, is the fact that we moved in together before we got married.
The canoeing is just a funny one. I don't think people really need to go canoeing.
No, I do think people really need to go canoeing.
The story on the canoeing is we went canoeing. It was a shit show, but we got through it, and we were better for it.
And then the second time we went, we were like a machine.
I would say any activity that you can do.
A team building activity.
Yeah, any activity that forces you to communicate with your partner through adversity. Right, when shit's not going your way or things are, because that is such a microcosm of life, right? That is such a, like they say, like Randy Posh has this, what's his lecture or his book called? Anyway, he's a Carnegie Mellon computer scientist who gave a really famous last lecture, and he talked about head fakes. There are all these things in life that we do that are head fakes. You think you're doing them for one reason, but you're really doing them for another. And he said that the whole big head fake of his talk was, he gave this talk as a last lecture as a professor, but really he gave the talk for his children.
Yeah.
They would always have something of their dad and of what he thought about the world. But they're in
lessons.
Yeah, and sports are the same way, right? Like you play sports because you think the sport is important or winning this game is important, but it's not. Sports teach you about how to communicate and work with others. They teach you about how to deal with difficult, assholey people. Maybe you get a really pain in the ass coach and you have to learn how to deal with somebody who has authority and work with that person. And
it's just team building.
Yeah, and so to the point of canoeing is like anything you can do with your partner that teaches you how to communicate back and forth without attacking each other or going to ground with each other. That will build you up and help you practice for real life.
But I'm not saying like you go the first time and if it's a shit show, that means that you were destined to not be together.
No, it's practice.
It's practice.
Yeah.
But I just strongly urge people to do those sort of things.
Yeah, I think that's value add because you're gonna come into real life situations where it's not just.
And you need to know how your partner can handle those stressful situations.
Yeah. You need to know how you each are gonna handle them together. And so that you're not, when your bank account all of a sudden gets real tight, you're not going to go for your partner's throat about their last purchase, right? Like you want to know that you guys know how to have those conversations before it's that life and death.
But it is a funny story to look back on. And if you want us to actually tell the story, you can leave a comment or whatever.
Yeah, that's a long story. But it's a funny story.
It is
and
funny.
I think too, like, how no matter how maybe what do you call it? Maybe not conservative or traditional the idea of living together is before you're married. I'm biased because that's what we did, so I totally acknowledge that bias. And people, I know there are tons of other people on the other side of this argument that would say the exact opposite of what we are saying. But I think they're like, with practicing your communication before it's,
Final.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of the same idea as like giving that trial run of making sure that you guys can work through. There are just so many things that come out of between yourselves and in your relationship when you're that in close proximity. You just
don't know how many little annoying quirks your partner has until you're smack in the same living quarters.
Yeah, like your love languages, like your stupid little idiocy things that you perceive and react to and have stories and narratives around, and you just don't know those until you're...
You need to be able to be able to talk to yourself of, are these little things that I find annoying a make it or break it situation in my eyes. Like, you need to be able to do those things before it is real deal situation, because I also view marriage, I don't want to view it as an easy escape route of I can just divorce the person and move on.
And that's where
if I'm going to marry somebody, I want to know that that's going to be the person that I'm going to be with.
I think though that's too, like, and I think we would actually be in agreement with this, but I think that's also the people on the counter argument of this whole living together before marriage argument. The opposite side is like, well, that's the whole point. You make the commitment and you're in it together forever, regardless.
And you learn how to work through it.
Yeah, which I totally like.
I agree with. I see that.
I see that, and I guess my reaction to the whole trying it first is there are so many real world and very painful consequences of jumping into a marriage and then it not lasting or it becoming something, like you said, deal breakers, things that really just bother you and you cannot.
Because there's some things that you realize when you move in with somebody, even roommates, that you realize, I did not realize how much this annoys me. And
people can say, well, that you should have done more dating but they're just some that
you
intimacy.
You can't know some of those things.
In my opinion,
you can't know that the person lays their wet towel on the bed after they take a shower, or you can't know that. You just can't know those teeny tiny little things. And I'm sure people listening to this will be like, really? Laying a wet towel or walking their wet feet on the carpet.
Those things though unravel to larger things. They really do. They unravel to much larger conversations about character.
Yes, and I think a lot of the stuff that I had found annoying in the beginning is because I viewed that as being insensitive to me.
No,
like you weren't thinking about me by doing those things.
Yeah,
and that was more of the bigger issue.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think you could probably make an argument either way on this, but I think we're on the same page in terms of like I would probably prefer to see my son be in a long-term committed relationship, maybe engaged even, try living together first before they sign the dotted line.
Yeah.
Because to me, at some level, if you've made that commitment to each other, like if you've made that, like this is my person, this is who I'm going to spend my life with, living together is largely not going to be a non-issue because you've already made that mindset shift, right? Truly made the mindset shift. But if you really haven't committed, living together is very quickly going to expose the lack of commitment.
Yeah.
You think you're committed, and this is going to test if you really are committed. Are you really committed to dealing with all this person's failings and inadequacies and your own failings and inadequacies, or do you just kinda?
Yeah, because if somebody's not willing to, what's the word that I'm trying to say?
Someone's not willing to compromise or be flexible.
If somebody's not willing to be flexible or to compromise in a situation, they're not willing to actually fully commit to you.
Yeah, it takes two to tango.
And if you are in a marriage or in a relationship and that person's not willing to bend on anything, that it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I if I had to, I'll brag on us on this one because I think no one can know our relationship really except us. But if I had to brag, that's the thing that I feel like we've done best. I started dating as a 15-year-old kid, and now I'm a 26-year-old man, I would say. And there are lots of things that are different about me now than I was then, and there's lots of things that are different about you now than you were then. But we've continued to remain committed to the fact that we chose each other. This is our commitment, and we're going to work through this as we shift and change. We're going to be flexible.
Well, we're growing together.
Yeah, like as each one of us grows as an individual, we try to adjust and compensate, or do whatever we need to do
for the other person to grow alongside us.
And living together is very quickly going to test your commitment to that.
The biggest thing is that you just, in your mindset, you have to think, do I truly believe that this person is worth all of this?
Yeah.
In the long run.
But you have to, in order to get to that worth all of this, in order to really understand what is on the other end of the scale.
Yes, all the frustrations, everything
part
that comes in life
that,
with being with that person.
Part of that decision is, or what I feel is part of that is you'll never be able to really weigh what that is until you get to that level of intimacy and closeness that comes from knowing each other really well day to day on dates and hanging out together, and then knowing each other even more intimately and even closer because now you're running a household together and trying to manage a household together. That's more
of what I'm saying is running a household and managing a household. You need to know that you and that person can do that.
Yeah. How do you guys handle money? How do you guys communicate money? How do you deal with financial stress? That's the biggest, I think that's the number one reason people get divorced, at least in the United States, is financial stress. So living together is going to be a very quick experiment on how you all deal with that. How do you deal with finances, budgeting?
And all of that needs to be discussions before you're going into everything. You need to be able to communicate all that stuff without feeling judgmental.
Correct. And people are going to be like, well, you can have you can going back to the canoe situation, you can have as many theoretical conversations about how you're going to handle each other when your canoe flips upside down as you're paddling down the river. But until you're there and your canoe flips upside down, you don't know. You don't know how you're going to handle it, and you won't understand how to improve how you handle that situation until in some ways you're somewhat experiencing it. And that's the whole idea of that trial, that practice of it. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
All right. We're coming up on an hour. Good conversation. Anything more you want to add?
No.
All right, we better run and make some TikToks.
I'm not ready.
It's too late for that.
It's not too late. It's just I'm not mentally... I haven't decided
You're not committing.
I am committing. I just don't know what kind of TikTok I want to make just yet.
Well, Gary Vee would say just make it. And if you don't like it, make another one.
Okay, Gary Vee.
Gary Vee's the man.
He is.
If there's one thing I could do in this world, it would be to get everyone to listen to Gary Vee. But see, that's where there's some hope for me, because I feel like Gary Vee is that he's learned somehow to allow himself to be that intense communicator. But I will say, I think a lot of people are put off by it at first. But
because of how.
But he's
loud.
figured out, and granted, he's 40 something. I'm 26, so I'm sure with time I'm going to learn how to.
I don't think he's figured anything out, Steven. I think he's just come to the realization that I am who I fucking am.
You either like it or you don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's not going to change me any.
Yeah. I should commit to doing that more. I should commit to just
think that
here's my intensity. This is what it is. You either not you either deal with it, not like that. I don't want to be an asshole, but this is just what it is, and I apologize if it rubs you wrong. I don't mean anything wrong by it. My intentions are good.
And I think that's the biggest thing that Gary Vee has shown, is that the way I perceive him, at least it's not necessarily that. He has no ill will.
Yeah, exactly.
Towards anyone. He doesn't care. He loves you all, and he hopes for the best.
That's what I was going to say.
But he's going to call your shit out.
And that's I was actually going to say, when you said he has no ill will, I was going to say the exact opposite. He only has goodwill for you.
Yes.
He only cares about you winning. That's it. He wants
everyone to win. Every person he talks to.
But he's not.
But also, he radiates that.
That's his energy, and
that's
feel
his
it.
energy. He has nothing but love for everyone that comes into his presence, into his little orb.
He's also, though, committed to
calling your shit out.
He's committed to not compromising who he is or how he communicates to make you feel more comfortable.
No.
Right? He wants you to win. But he's gonna be him, and he's gonna tell you what he thinks, and he's gonna do what he thinks is gonna help you win, and that's it. Like that, you just kind of have to.
But he even says that he was like, "I'm gonna say this, and you can take it for however you can take it in, or you're not gonna take it in. But this is my opinion, and this is what I give to you."
We need to get some T-shirts made that say how those T-shirts, those real famous ones that are I Heart New York. We need to get ones that say I Heart Gary Vee or something like that.
I'm sure those are already made.
All right. On that note, thanks for listening. We got this 12th episode in, and now we're gonna run off to bed. So
I think it's funny that you're lying to them like you're.
We're not gonna run off to bed. We're gonna stay up way too late and try to do more things.
I will probably go to bed. You will not.
Okay. Kelsey will go to bed, and I will stay up way too late trying to get way too many things done. And yeah,
just saying, be more of yourself. Let's not change who we are now.
So if you guys enjoyed it, share it with a friend, share it with a family member. Find us on Instagram at steven.freeborn or at kfreeborn412. Send us a message. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to hear more of. And we will see you next time.
Bye.